What's up? So I was sitting here thinking about the video I just recorded, and I was like thinking about something that God called me to, and God's called me to a lot of things, and one thing in particular, a rather controversial thing, but God has finally shown me what it looks like, what it means, what exactly my role to fulfill is. And I'm finally at a point where I can accept it and not hide it and, whatever. So basically, in 2009, he came to me and said this to me. And to my surprise, a lot of people already knew. They recognized it in me. But a lot of people don't. And a lot of people refuse to believe that this kind of thing exists. And that's just the result of American godless culture thinking. But... and cessationists, and I hate cessationism because it is so wrong and erroneous. Now, do people abuse the gifts of the Spirit? Yes. Does God throw the baby out with the bathwater and just get rid of it all? No. He absolutely does not. People abuse sex all the time, but God's design for marriage involves sex, and he gave us sex, and it's a beautiful thing. And does that mean he throws the baby out with the bathwater? No. People, even Jesus said it, in the end days, people will still be given to and given in marriage. All things that God creates go on to exist for all time, because God creates perfect good. The gifts of the Spirit are no different. It has nothing to do with the apostle age, apostolistic age. I don't know. I can't talk. Anyway, it has to do with God does not ever veer from his plans. He sets his plans in motion and sees them through to the end, because he doesn't change his mind. He doesn't give up. He is without changing. His shadow does not move. So anyway, to my story. Story time with Stevig. I love story time with Stevig, and I know so do all of you. So, in 2009, he came to me officially and told me something that apparently a bunch of people already knew. He officially called me as his prophet. Woke me up at 3 in the morning, stuck me in Jeremiah chapter 1 and said, read this. And I'll tell you when to stop. He stopped me at verse 18 and said, these are my words to you. And I have wrestled with what this means, what it looks like, and I've even divulged in Stevig's log before what I think it means. And I was in part right, but I didn't speak to what I didn't know. But now I know fully, because it all coalesces with everything that he's doing in my life. So I'm going to explain it to you so that you all know and are given the chance to accept, because God gives everybody the chance to accept the truth. It's up to them whether they receive it or reject it. And if you reject the warning of the guy on the watchman's tower and the enemy attacks, the blood that is shed is on your hands, not the watchman's, because he did his job and he warned you. So I'm going to explain it to you, because God always gives you an opportunity to receive or reject the truth. That is on you. So this is what it looks like. He has been teaching me what being a prophet looks like for 20 years, ever since 2009 when he explained it to me. So I know it's legit, and so the verse in particular in Jeremiah chapter 1 that stood out to me, that I think he wanted me to get, is verse 18, and it basically, I don't remember verbatim, but it basically says, I've made you a wall of bronze and pillars of iron, and you will speak to the people, and this is where it gets interesting. The kings and the priests and all the people will come against you, but do not fear, because I am with you. So I literally had to break that down. That means political leaders. That means religious people. And all the people is basically just the general population. They will come against you because they just don't understand. It comes back to that the human mind being flawed and finite, and we just can't wrap our brains around what God does. But basically, I have been called, like the prophet Samuel or like the prophets of the Old Testament, to stand outside the culture. It makes perfect sense why I can't function in society, because I'm not meant to. I'm meant to stand outside of society and the culture and observe it and judge it. And this is where we get into another issue that I am deterred by as far as American thinking goes. Everybody shouts, oh, we're not supposed to judge. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Well, keep reading Matthew chapter 7, buddy, because it goes on to say, by the measure in which you judge, you will be judged. And then he gives us an example of what that judgment looks like. He then goes on in John chapter 7 to say, when you judge, because we are supposed to judge, and 1 Corinthians 5 tells us how we are to judge those in the church and not outsiders, because God judges outsiders. So this is what judgment looks like. We all make judgment. When the Bible uses the word judgment, it's not referring to a judge banging a gavel issuing a sentence. It's talking about you going to the store and deciding which turkey to buy for Thanksgiving. You make a judgment call. You are judging something. You're judging, I'm going to buy this turkey and not that one. I see a homeless guy on the street. Am I going to show him compassion, or am I going to be harsh with him? And that's where Matthew chapter 7 verse 2 comes in, because by the measure in which you judge, because you're going to judge, you will be judged. So when you judge with compassion. And as John chapter 7 says, when you judge, do not judge superficially as the hypocrites do. He was referring to the Pharisees. But judge righteously. So what is judging righteously? It's seeing the homeless guy on the street and having compassion on him and not being harsh with him. And Matthew chapter 7 verse 2 says that when you judge righteously, you will be judged righteously. So when you see the homeless guy on the street, or anybody for that matter, and you show them compassion, Matthew 25 talks about, what you do to the least of these, you have done to me. And Matthew chapter 7 verse 2 says, when you judge people, what you do to the least of these, you have done to me, and I will do to you. So if you judge with compassion, you will be judged with compassion. On that final day, you will stand before Jesus, and he'll say, when I was naked, you clothed me. You showed me compassion, and so I will show you compassion. Where was I? So yeah, cessationists will push back and say, speaking in tongues is unbiblical because it died with the Apostle Age. Being a prophet is unbiblical because it died with the Apostle Age. That is simply because narrow-minded, rigid American Christian thinking doesn't want to acknowledge that God appoints people to... literally, the book of Judges was about a series of prophets that God appointed over the land. And what did they do? They judged it. They were judges. And nobody wants to acknowledge that God has appointed me to judge this culture on his behalf, because I have a relationship with God, and I talk to God, and we communicate daily, throughout the day. The reason I'm getting on here and doing 2 video blogs is because God keeps speaking to me, and we keep conversating, and he keeps telling me things. And so, yeah, does that mean I have a hard life? Yes, because I don't exist in society. I can't function within society. Apparently, God had to put a few thorns in my flesh so that I wouldn't, be too powerful. But it is what it is. I can't think if I had something else to say. I don't know. I guess I'm done because my brain went just blank. My brain just went blank. So that is the synopsis of who I am and what I'm called to and why I'm called to it. So use your brains that God gave you and put it all together, and you will know it to be true. Jesus loves you. He corrects those whom he loves, and he judges the unrighteous for your benefit, because Romans 8:28 says God works out the good for all who love him and are called according to his purpose. Works all things out for good. And he has numerous ways that he does that because he loves you. So, yeah. Grace and peace.